Yeah, because I asked.
All right, good evening. We're going to begin here shortly. Please ensure your cell phones are off or on silent, and council members, ensure your microphones are turned on. Awesome, thank you.
I know. Lose interest.
All right, today is Monday, June 20th, 2023. This is a Barberton City Council Committee of the Whole meeting tonight. Before we begin the Committee of the Whole meeting, we will jump into individual committee meetings, and we will start with Streets, Sidewalk, and Lighting with Mrs. Angela.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is Monday, June 20th. We're all sitting here in council chambers at 6:04, and I'd like to bring to order the Street, Sidewalk, and Lighting meeting. Members that are present, I'm Chair, Mrs. Bailey's absent, and Mr. Griffin. All other council members are noted on my sheet along with guests. Topic of discussions, we have no new legislation. We have no pending legislation. And I can open it up to my committee for any miscellaneous. Mr. Griffin?
I don't have
No?
anything.
I do like, if I can address Mr. Shreve. I've had some calls about Worcester Road and State Street. Yes, the barrels are there. Have they started yet, or do you have a start date?
So they're in the beginning phases, so they've started the MOT, which is moving the traffic, so they are setting that up, and then they'll be mobilizing the equipment, and they'll be breaking ground very soon.
Very soon, okay. And another question I have is 4th Street. I've had people complain, it's not done yet. They're doing the ADA ramps, is that right?
Yeah.
I thought I'd make that announcement.
What they've done is they came in, they ground it out. They're going to be working on any manhole or valve box adjustments.
Right.
They're going to be doing the ADA ramps, so all of the corners on the sidewalks, if any drive approaches or any type of concrete like that needs done, and then they will come in and put the final coat of asphalt,
Okay.
including paint.
Yes, yes. Well, when they paint the street, then right away people think it's done, and it's not done when you're looking at the ADA ramps, the corners are all tore
So
up.
legally, they have to return all the pavement markings.
Right.
So that the road is safe to maintain traffic on it.
Okay. I'm just excited about the orange barrels.
Absolutely.
So any other updates did you want to give us, Mr. Shreve?
So we're still finalizing some of the payment meetings. Our residential program should be starting here in 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
We've met with Perrin. Perrin's ready to go. Again, like you said, we're all excited about the barrels also.
Okay. Is there anything from any council members? Any questions about the streets or anything? No? Anybody sitting in the audience? No? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Griffin, and I'll second that, and we are adjourned at 6:06. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Angela. Next up is Environmental Health and Social Services.
Oh, that's me.
Mrs. Angela.
I got double duty, double pay, huh? Right, it is 6:06, and I'd like to bring to order the Environmental Health and Social Services. The chairperson, Mrs. Bailey, is absent, and Mr. Jaber is absent, and I'm here along with other council people and guests as noted on my sheet. We have no new legislation, and we have no pending legislation, and I can open it up for a miscellaneous. I do have a question for the mayor. I received a call about the RIP medical debt, and from going back on my notes from April, I believe, it was the state. We were waiting to see if the state was going to come forward with anything. And this person I talked to thought maybe she qualified, but how do you fill out an application? How do you go about that? And I didn't have an answer. So if you can explain that, that would be wonderful.
So, RIP, we're working with them to get a contract over to us. That hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
If you recall, I was going to apply to the Tuscarawas Health and Wellness. That application is due, grant application is due July 15th. so a few more weeks there. So if we do enter into contract with RIP, they're the ones that get the list from the hospital networks, and they're the ones that make the determination based on the criteria. They reach out to the patient. So there's nothing any citizen has to fill out that the city has. They work straight through RIP. I have not heard anything new about the state being involved, but I know that RIP has spoken to them, and they're the ones that told us to kind of see what they do, and it's better to use their money than ours. I looked at the state budget, House Bill 33, which is, there's been a lot of discussion recently over that. I didn't see anything in there specific to RIP. You know, it could be kind of generally stated, but I didn't see anything there.
Because if they're going through collections or close to collections, what do they do? I mean, do they contact? I told this individual the best thing to do is call the hospital and maybe just go on a payment plan or something of that sort. Don't do, the worst you could do is not do anything. If she can do something with the hospital, $10 a month or $20 a month or something of that, she was going to call them. But she asked me if they had a list, if SUMA had a list. I said, I don't know. So I was just wondering.
The relationship between the hospital networks and RIP, I'm not sure what that looks like. And like I said, we're waiting for that contract to be sent over from RIP so we can look at that.
Okay. Does anybody from the committee, which is me, have any questions? Ms. Taylor, go ahead.
In regards to the RIP medical debt, it was my understanding, I thought they had to be in collections for, what was it, 18 months or so before even qualifying for that. So, like he said, or you said, I think the easiest thing for her to do would be just to reach out to the hospital.
Well, because they're so used to paying their bills, to be in collections,
Yeah.
they're upset about that. That's the whole thing. So.
Sure.
Yeah, and I would hate for anyone to assume that they meet the qualifications, stop
Right.
paying, so it goes to collections, then they don't actually meet the criteria.
I know.
So without knowing, it's not my place to know this person's financial background. things
Yes,
like that.
yeah, I didn't either. I just told her to call them and said,
Yeah.
you can maybe set something up. And then I said, if that you had any questions, you can call the mayor on that, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn? I
There's
guess I'm going to
no-
get one.
There was
I'll
no
make a
quorum, I
motion,
just was allowing general discussion.
And I'll make a second one, and then we are adjourned at 6:11.
All right, well, just for the record,
can't
Health
vote.
Committee had no quorum.
Yeah, no quorum.
All right. Planning, annexation, and codes with Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call the Planning, Annexation, and Codes Committee to order. It is 6:11 p.m., Tuesday, June 20th. Here in council chambers, all members of the committee are present, which, with the exception of Mr. Jaber, that includes myself as chair, Mrs. Angeloff, and President Greer. All other council members are present with the exception of Erica Bailey. And guest noted on my sheet. We have no new requests for legislation nor any pending legislation. I will open this up for a miscellaneous discussion. If our planning director has any updates on anything you'd like to share.
Only that for a lot of the CDBG projects that were approved for the amended 2022 plan, we should see groundbreaking on a lot of these happening in the very near future. HUD's environmental review process can be a bit cumbersome at times, but we're very near the end and anticipate bidding for quite a few of our actual physical construction projects here very shortly.
Thank you. Yes.
And this is the Beacon Journal today, and all of this is CDBG funds from Barberton. Did you see that?
I did.
Okay.
It requires a lot of text.
So it is public knowledge, it's all there. I can't imagine what that bill cost, but you have to do that. Okay, just to let you know, it's been published.
All right. Is there any other miscellaneous from any council members from the gallery? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
And I'll second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:13.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Next up, Finance and Personnel, Mr. Iddick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel, it is 6:13, Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. We're in council chambers. The committee is present, which consists of Councilors Coburn, Thompson, President Greer, and myself as chair. All others noted. We have some requests for legislation. First, a letter from Caroline Crawford, Stormwater Manager, requesting legislation to appropriate $348,158.67 from the unappropriated item of the FEMA fund to the Stormwater Capital Budget to reimburse expenses related to the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. Emergency wording has been requested and referred from utilities. I think we've seen many of these in the past. Does anybody have any questions? Seems to be a repeat with different numbers.
I make a motion, we call for it.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Next is from Barberton Fire Department's Chief Steve Iona requesting legislation to appropriate $4,753.59 from items sold on Gov Deals to the Fire Department operating budget. Did everybody get the tiny list? Did I use a magnifying glass to see?
Yeah.
All right. Were there any questions on that from anyone? Mr. President?
Thank you, Chair. What fund is that coming from? What fund does the funds from .gov go to?
Director?
Going to this general fund.
Okay. Awesome, thank you.
Anything else? Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor? Aye. Leslie, from Don Patterson, Director of Parks and Recreation, requesting legislation to appropriate $2,593.08 from the unappropriated item of the Barberton Beautification Fund to the Parks Department Operation Maintenance Fund with emergency wording requested. This is referred from Parks. Does anybody have any questions that weren't answered last week?
I have none.
None? Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so then miscellaneous. Any from the committee?
I have nothing.
Anybody else on the body? From the gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:16.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. That concludes our individual committee meetings. With no objection, I'd like to move right into committee of the whole meeting.
I don't have
Any
any
council members?
objection.
10-minute break. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, and just to clarify, I believe when I started the meeting, I said Monday, it is Tuesday, June 20th. All right. All right, today is June 20th, 2022. It is a Tuesday. This is a committee of the whole meeting for Barberton City Council. I call this meeting to order at 6:17 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Citizens addressing council, we do have one addressing. When I call your name, please step up to the podium. You have 5 minutes. Also state your name, address, and reason for speaking. And Mr. Dobbin.
I'd like to thank council for having me today. I'm Andy Dobbin, Operations Manager at the MAD here in Barberton, Mosquito Abatement District. And I just wanted to come and kind of explain what we do at the MAD and kind of address the public. There's a lot of questions this time of year. Mosquitoes are biting. So I just wanted to get out here and let everyone know what we're doing. So yeah, really we focus on four main things at the mosquito abatement. The first is larviciding. So basically at the beginning of the season, late April, early May, we go out and we look for any standing water we can find. Whether that's catch basins, roadside ditches, swampy areas, any standing water a mosquito can breed in. So that's what we try to do. So we go out, check for larvae, and treat those areas with standing water. So what that does, so we throw little pellets into the water, and basically what that does, it keeps the mosquitoes from maturing, which then kills them. It keeps the larvae from maturing, which then kills them. So then throughout the whole summer, we keep checking up on those places, the swampy areas, the ditches. There's places that hold standing water all year, so we go back and check. So that's one part. Another part is we actually do trap for mosquitoes. I know it sounds weird, but we put out 2 different types of traps all over the city, and we basically collect those every day, and then we count the mosquitoes, which sounds really weird, but we count to make sure how many we got in that trap for that night, and then we send them to the Ohio Department of Health. And what they do is they identify the species and they test for West Nile. So last year we had actually 9 West Nile positive samples that we sent to the Ohio Department of Health. And we sent over 20,000 mosquitoes. And then the year before we also had 9 as well. So that is a pretty average. You're going to find West Nile in the mosquitoes, and that's pretty much, we find about 10 per year. So those traps aren't really for managing the population of mosquitoes, more for surveillance, to let us know what we have out there, what types of mosquitoes, and if they have disease. And then the next part that part of our program is spraying. Everybody sees us spray Thursday nights, every other Thursday night starting in June, all the way to the end of September. We have scheduled sprays in Barberton and Norton, and they rotate every week. This Thursday is a Barberton spray. So we go out at night because mosquitoes are most active at night. So that's the main reason for that. We also can spray in the morning because that's when mosquitoes are second most active during the day. So we go out Thursday night and spray. We take that information from the trapping and we spray those areas that we feel pose a threat to mosquitoes biting or disease. And we do that every other Thursday night throughout the summer. And then we also, within the last few years, we have started to do property sprays, which a lot of the citizens really enjoy. We offer one-time property treatment per year to everyone in Barberton. So if you call and you're having problems with mosquitoes or you're having an event, we will go out, spray your property. So what we do, come in the morning, we fog the property just like we do on Thursday nights on the roads. And then we come back later and we have a different type of spray. We go around, spray the trees, the bushes, and the grass. And that spray actually kills fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes. And it kind of is more of a barrier. It creates a barrier for about 21 days around your property. So yeah, that's something we've started the last few years, and people have definitely liked that. And then the fourth thing we do is educate. Anytime we can answer questions about mosquitoes and how they work and where they breed, and different types of diseases, we try to do that. All of our workers are very trained very well to answer any questions, and I am always available. We actually have a website, www.mosquitodistrict.com, or you can email me, mad@mosquitodistrict.com, or you can give me a call, 330-848-2623. And that's all I got. Does anyone have any questions for me?
questions.
What's the cost of that for public property or private property?
Yeah, so property taxes.
Okay.
So the cost, the rate is 0.52 mils, which comes to about $18 per $100,000 worth of property.
Okay, there's no extra for the owner, okay.
No, because you paid
We're
property.
paying the joint property taxes, okay.
I have a question. This is probably a silly question, but is it safe to be outside while you're spraying?
So, both of our sprays that we spray are registered through the EPA and the Ohio Department of Health. I would not recommend spraying directly when people are around. And we try to, when we're out spraying, the guys are trained to shut it off if they see any people walking. But really, so that fog, it'll stay in the air for about 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
Kill any mosquitoes it comes in contact with while it's in the air, and then it falls to the ground. So the reason why we spray, another reason why we spray at night is not just because mosquitoes are most active, but also people are most of the time inside. You know, so we're getting the best control, and then we're also on Thursday nights trying not to disturb people, you know, being outside. So, any other questions? Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbin. All right, we'll jump into the committee reports, and we'll start off with street, sidewalk, and lighting with Mrs. Angela.
Thank you, Mr. President. Streets, sidewalk, and lighting met this evening at 6:04. We have no new legislation, no pending legislation. Talked about some street paving, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Angela. Planning, annexation, and codes, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes met this evening at 6:11 here in council chambers. We had no new requests for legislation, no pending legislation. We got a few updates from our planning director, Mr. Worsler. We adjourned at 6:13. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. City utilities, Mrs. Coburn.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met June 12th, 2023. We had a request for legislation from Dennis Weaver, Utilities Director, authorizing the mayor to enter into professional engineering service contract with CT Consultants for additional construction administration, construction inspection, and environmental assistance support services for the Bentwood Package Plant Elimination Project, and in the amount not to exceed $118,700. We had an emergency wording request for that. Did we vote on that last week?
What, to get it out of committee?
Okay, we just voted to get it out of committee. The second one was a letter from Caroline Crawford, Stormwater Manager, requesting legislation to appropriate $348,158.67 from the unappropriated unappropriated item of FEMA fund to the storm capital budget to reimburse expenses related to the hazard mitigation grant program. We had emergency wording requested for that, and we referred that to finance. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Coburn. Public Welfare and Safety, Mrs. Craig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Welfare and Safety met last Monday, June the 12th. The meeting was brought to order at 6:35. All members of my committee were present, which is me as chairman, Mr. Griffin, and Mrs. Coburn as committee members. All other council people were also present, as well as guests as noted on my sheet. We had one new request for legislation, which was a letter from Robert Inkervati, Court Administrator, requesting legislation to enter into contract with U.S. Royce Protection Service, formerly known as Tenable Protective, for a one-year period from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. Emergency wording was requested. We got a copy of the contract, and the rates that were listed, although it says 22 over top of them, that is the new rate for the contract, which is $21 for regular hours and $31.50 for holiday hours. We had no miscellaneous discussion. We were adjourned at 6:39, and with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Fry. Rules, Marketing, and Development, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules, Marketing, and Development met on June 12th. All members were present and guests as noted. We had no requests for legislation. We adjourned at 6:42. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Environmental Health and Social Services, Mrs. Bailey's absent. The only one in the committee is Mrs. Angela, so should be quick.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Yes, Environmental Health and Social Services did meet this evening at 6:06. We did not have enough for a quorum, but there was no new legislation, no pending legislation, and we talked about the RIP medical debt. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Angela. City Properties, Parks and Recreation, Mr. Jaber is absent. Co-chair is Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Properties, Parks and Recreation is calling for the following. Appropriation for $2,593.08 from the unappropriated item of the Beautification Fund to the Parks Department Operation Maintenance Fund budget with emergency wording requested and referred to Finance. I believe that's it. I didn't know Councilor Jaber was going to be here today.
Yeah, that's all I recall.
All right, well, then
Actually,
with that-
double checking, but
With that,
That's all
Parks,
he has.
all right, with that, Parks and City Properties passes.
awesome. Thank you, Mr. Heidick. And Finance and Personnel, Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel is calling for the following. Legislation to appropriate $348,158.67 from the unappropriated item of the FEMA fund to the Stormwater Capital Budget to reimburse expenses related to the Hazard Mitigation Program. Emergency wording has been requested. This was referred from Utilities. Next is a request to appropriate $4,753.59 from items sold on Gov Deals to the Fire Department operating budget. Lastly is legislation to appropriate $2,593.08 from the unappropriated item of the Barberton Beautification Fund to the Parks Department's Operation and Maintenance Fund. Emergency wording has been requested, and it's referred from Parks. And with that, Finance passes.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. That concludes our committee reports. Is there anything from council, the body? Anything from department heads? Oh, Mr. Griffin?
Yes, I just want to thank everyone that came out Saturday for the community picnic that was held at the Heart of Christ Ministries at the corner of Frank and Stanley. A lot of children, we had a good time, and the mayor was there, Councilor Mr. Heidick, which I didn't see, and Megan was there, and we donated books and stuff. So it was a great event. Hopefully next year we could get the word out a little earlier. So but it was nice. So.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Anything else from council? Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Mr. President. To Councilor Griffin's point, one thing that was nice was the road closures for them.
Yeah.
And I'd like to remind everybody that tell their citizens there that it's an easy form to fill out if they want to have some sort of block party, and Director Iceman's not here, but she actually loves seeing those, and it's literally 2 pages of contact information, a blank square, you draw a little map and turn it in. It's that easy.
They're in our office?
They're in our office. Yeah,
Okay.
we have them.
So if
They
any,
can contact council office and I have them.
There you go.
anything else from council? All right, one more time for department heads? Nothing? All right, our next meeting is June 26th. That is going to be the regular legislative meeting. And we do have a meeting on July 3rd. So I just wanted to state that. And I don't have anything else, so mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also would like to thank everyone at the Heart of Christ for their community event this past weekend. I was in the morning, helped set up the tents and the volleyball net and some of the tables there. So it's always good whenever organizations, neighborhood organizations can come together and put, church or not, put together community events for the betterment of the community. So support that all day long. Well, thank you for coming in and talk about MAD. This is a great service that we have here in this area, especially now during times like that we're experiencing, where you have a hot, muggy summer that followed a very mild winter. If you look at any reports, the amount and severity of mosquitoes and ticks and fleas and other small insects is supposed to be really, really high because of the mild winter and the hot, muggy temperature that we're experiencing now. So they're saying that news reports that even some of those ticks and fleas are dropping off of branches. So you just be walking through a wooded area with pants on and everything. It's just not walking up and brushing against something. They're all over the place. So very, very lot of diseases that follow those insects. So it's very important that we have organizations like MAD. Starting Christmas in July a little early, after talking to Salvation Army in Backham, the need is increased with the high cost of food, including canned goods and the pastas and the peanut butters and the soups. And so starting it a little early here, so drop off points can be made in my office or at the YMCA. There's a lot of other organizations and businesses throughout town who are collecting from their own employees. It's just not open as a drop-off point for the public. So this will run from now until the end of July. So non-perishables benefiting Backham and Salvation Army. So hopefully we can get a lot donated here. Jam the RV is this Friday at Lake Anna for the first concert, collecting school supplies for the students, but also collecting supplies for teachers. So I've talked to some interested people who want to make sure the teachers are taken care of. I reached out to a few teachers, and they're the ones that are pulling out of their own pocket sometimes to supply different things for the classroom. So don't want to forget about them as well. Change for Change will be on the 29th at Durbin's Magic Freeze, benefiting youth football and cheer. So hope to see you out there. It's going to be a lot of dripping ice cream if it's anyway like it is now. So talked about the construction and 4th Street. All roads are going to be grounded down. They'll put a base coat on and then the top coat. So it could take several weeks, could take up to a month. They look for soft spots. They do the concrete work, the ADA ramps. And that's by federal law for the ADA ramps. So I tell everyone, please contact us, but please be patient. There's a process to get things done. They'll grind down the street, and most of the roads through the communities of Northeast Ohio are not done by today's standards. They weren't done back then by today's standards. So you could have asphalt on dirt. You could have asphalt on cinders. So when they find a soft spot, they've got to dig that out and fix it. And then, like I said, the ADA ramps and some curb repair and sidewalks possibly here and there. So just be patient. We had a public meeting for everybody that is on the West State and Worcester Road North corridor area, and it's all the concrete. So it goes up to Hiram Avenue, goes down to Hiram, close to Hiram on Worcester Road North. So in all directions. None of the businesses showed up. Mr. Kobyluck, who comes to council once in a while, he showed up. He's the only one. So you get phone calls from businesses, and we made sure we hand-delivered the letter to the manager, so it didn't get lost. So we're continuing to work with the businesses and everyone else on the road closures and detours and things of that nature. Unfortunately, progress takes time and can inconvenience people, so we want to minimize that as much as possible. But that will be starting off here very soon. They do have some light boards up on State Street, and actually in all 4 directions. And so it'll be going to 1 lane in certain areas, and so it'll be similar if you used to drive to Akron over the last few years and the lane changes would change, lane would change almost daily. It's going to be like that. This is a really in-depth reconstruction project. But this is also a project that the federal government's kicking in about 80% of the cost. So, and we understand that's a very busy intersection. We understand the traffic counts that go through there. And you know, when you have something like that at a major intersection, you realize that it's not so easy to navigate through Barberton at times. But there's detours set up and there's ways to go about that and flaggers and things like that. So, but please, if there's any questions, have the people reach out to our office. ODOT's running the project. But obviously we're involved as well, so. Any questions on that? I know questions are going to be coming up, 4th Street, and then you've got Snyder Avenue, and you've got Worcester Road West, and you've got West Hopkinton and Norton Avenue.
Do we have a helipad?
What's that?
Do we have a helipad?
There's one at the hospital, yeah. There's no one else in the city has one, so you just come and go from the hospital.
Yeah.
Spent some time in Columbus last week discussing economic development, and meeting with other cities in the state, talking about the state's budget and different programs, whether that's demolition funding or remediation, brownfield remediation, or other programs for spec buildings or things of that nature. So more to come out very shortly. There's a lot that's being discussed with the state budget. Some things were thrown in at the last minute last week. So we're trying to address those in a timely fashion. I think Thursday morning I sent out 10 emails at 5 in the morning, and so I'm following up on those now. Haven't heard back from any reps that I've emailed, but I'm trying to make some inroads there. Because there's some things that really don't have anything to do with the state budget that were thrown in, right? So we want to make sure that those are being addressed. I have a call tomorrow with, I'm the president of the Mayor's Association of Portage, Stark, and Summit County, but also meeting with the Mayor's Association, Northeast Ohio Mayor's Association, and some lobbyists and Ohio Municipal League and others. Tomorrow I have a phone call with all of them so we can kind of all make sure we're on the same page, what it appears that we are, so we can address some of these issues collectively. So, that's all I have, unless there's any questions. Yes?
Change for changes on a Thursday night?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Just, that's the 29th.
It is.
Okay. It is.
Okay, just verifying.
Yeah, I knew the 29th was right.
It's usually Fridays.
I'll be there on the 29th, no matter what
You'll
day
be
it
on
is.
the 29th. No problem. Just checking.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. With nothing else, this meeting is adjourned at 6:41 PM. Thank you.